Alrighty, boys and girls, this is Chapter 2, Section 2, Solving One-Step Equations. So, the first thing you need to know is to solve an equation means to find the value of the variable that makes the equation true. Now, as you go about solving an equation, you're going to end up rewriting the equation over and over again as you solve it step by step. Each time you rewrite it, you're going to end up writing equivalent equations. Now, equivalent equations are equations that have the same solution. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is solving an equation by adding. Now, one thing you have to know about is the addition property of equality. And basically this states that if an equation is true, that if you add the same number to both sides, the resulting equivalent equation is also true. So here you're going to look at the side with the variable, and you can see that there's a minus 22 there. We want to get rid of that minus 22. And we do that with the opposite. The opposite of subtracting 22 is adding 22. So we're going to do that on both sides. What you do to one side, you do to the other. That way it remains true. This cancels. And we have C equals 76. Next, let's take a look at solving by subtracting. So we also have a subtraction property, the subtraction property of equality. It's basically the same thing as the addition property of equality, except for it states that if the equation is true, as long as you subtract the same thing from both sides, it remains true. So here the side with the variable is the m. You can see that a 63 is with it. When there's nothing in front of the number, the leading number, we assume it's positive. And the opposite of a plus 63 would be a minus 63. So I'm just going to take that away from both sides like so. This cancels. We end up with m equals, and 79 minus 63 is going to be 16. All right, next let's take a look at multiplication and division. Okay, so again we have some properties. The multiplication property of equality says that as long as you multiply both sides of an equation that's true by the same non-zero number, that the resulting equation is also going to be equivalent. And for division, it's the same thing. As long as you divide both sides by the same non-zero number, the resulting equation is going to be equivalent. So let's take a look at these. Here we have our variable r. On the right side, we want to isolate it. R is being multiplied by negative 3. Now the opposite of multiplying by negative 3 would be dividing by negative 3. Remember, a fraction bar symbolizes division, so that's what I recommend you use to keep your things nice and neat. It cancels out here and we're left with R. On this side, 39 divided by 3 is going to be 13, but remember, we now have a positive divided by a negative. When the signs are different, the result is negative. Alright, next let's take a look at this. We have Q divided by 3 equals 5. The opposite of division, multiplication. So, I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. The 3's cancel here, and we're left with Q equals, and 5 times 3 is 15. This one right here, remember your multiplicative inverse, reciprocals. Here I have 2/3 of Q equals 1/2. If I want to get rid of this 2/3, I'm actually going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So, there's the reciprocal, 3/2, on both sides. Right here, reciprocals, multiplicative inverse, that equals 1, and 1 times Q is Q. On this side, numerators, 1 times 3 is 3, denominators, 2 times 2 is 4. Now, one thing that I do want to point out while we're looking at fractions is before you do anything with a fraction, remember, if you're trying to do any multiplication or division, turn it into an improper fraction first if it's a mixed number. Also, remember, in order to add or subtract fractions, you need to have like fractions. That means you need to rewrite them with a common denominator. Alrighty, that's it for the lesson. See you in class.